For those of you who are just now joining us on YouTube to watch the VOD, this is a King of the Hill series. Ash will be defending his title against Vi in Game 1, and the winner of that match will play Zero. Quickly, to just briefly explain the rule set we use here at Stronghold series, we use an adapted rule set, very much like Groove of War 2, if you're a part of that community, a part of that tournament, where both players will rotate between bans on maps and bans on commanders. I won't go too specific into that. Know that the challenger does get a slight advantage being able to pick the pace of that. They'll get to pick if they're playing on map, or they'll pick if they're playing on side, with the challenger often getting the first pick in most of those scenarios. Vi will be the first challenger, as we mentioned earlier. They are currently figuring out their map and bans right now. We'll take a quick peek at that. Looks like they're both banning their commanders. Caesar, Tenri, and Nuru are the first three bans. Vi is taking player number 2 position, by the way, going second.
Yep. At Stronghold Series, we have a map pool of 4 maps at the moment. One of them from the Groove of War tournament, Hinterland Hijinks, and 3 others. Vi chose to ban Hidden Oasis, and it looks like they're going to be playing on Hijink Hinterland.
4th ban just came through. It's going to be Valder for the 4th ban. Just to be specific about, Vi banned Caesar and Nuru, while Ash banned Tenri and Valder. And they will be playing on Hijinks, as you mentioned, I believe.
Yep, that's really interesting, because what made Valder a real force on Hijinks is he has some really strong openers that you can take advantage of because of the location of the gate. So, and Valder was not very well respected before the tourney. He was a bit before the tourney, before the first tournament, people liked him a lot. Then he started falling off, and now people are starting to respect him a lot again. And it mostly comes down to just the advantage you can get in the opening, in a lot of opening situations with him.
Now, that said, while the players are figuring out the last parts of this ban phase, let's talk about one of the most interesting rules we are bringing to this tournament, Doc. And that is, we are bringing a chess clock into the mix here. No more are people going to have to view the 6-hour VOD of you playing Ash on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, that's a really great change. I'm glad for it, and I know that I know a lot of players who will be really happy for it, especially since you can create almost entirely different games just by manipulating the time control. Like, if we had, say, a way to integrate the timer better, we could have blitz formats where it's all about intuition and rough logic. Just think, go, go, go.
To be a little bit more clear about this particular clock, is we're using a delayed chess clock format. So it is traditional overtime rules. Both players will have 5 minutes on every one of their turns to do what they will. And once you run out of those 5 minutes, you go into overtime. Both players have 10 minutes of pooled time to work with. And once you run out of time, once those 10 minutes are up, you lose the match.
Yep. It's a fairly decent format. Gives players some pressure to go, while giving them, if they have a particular turn that really requires a lot of thinking and then it gives them a bit of time to actually analyze it and not have to completely rush through it. So time becomes a resource that you have to manage.
Right. We have a bit of a privilege to be able to do this for this series specifically, because while we're running the tournament, obviously we're able to run the clock as well. Having a dedicated third party to your match definitely helps with that.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to implement time controls in the future still. It's very difficult.
We still have Discord bot discussions going on. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I think the game definitely needs some sort of timer, and we're happy to sort of be an experimental testbed for that with this series.
Yeah, the one thing about any Discord bot solution, like I sort of suggested before, is while you can get very accurate information from the Discord, and you could have that be an official log where it's oh, there's a bit of latency. That's too bad. The rules are rules. You should have made that few seconds or whatever. You really have to. We have options there, but the problem is, how do you sync that up with the turn start and turn end times?
And that actually is something to mention. Historically on this stream, we don't skip animations because it's more of a presentation thing on our side. It doesn't really slow down the game. For this event, we do not have animations turned on. So we'll try to do our best to visually help you guys work through that. But just know that, we're looking at this from more of a competitive standpoint rather than a presentation standpoint for once. I know some people are really happy about that, and some people are going to be really confused. But that's just sort of to maintain the integrity of the clock since we're running it on the third party.
Yeah. Turns out that trying to implement a timer into a game without one is not easy. Especially, one of the big problems is the fact that we're supporting Switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of problems from Wargroove coming down to it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one thing a lot of people said. Like, if there were some way to do an online timer, that would be, like, awesome. If you could, like, sync an online timer to some website and, like, have it room-based. But then you're like,
yeah, you could
but what if you're playing on Switch?
Mod or something. Yeah. Because mods would be a great way to go about this as well. You could have a mod hook right into the game and hook to a website. Boom, you have a precise timer that, while not fully tamper-proof, is relatively tamper-proof. You can't do that with the Switch because the Switch doesn't support modding because, well, it's a Switch. And there are a lot of people who play this almost exclusively through Switch, partially because, well, the game works a lot better on Switch.
Well, either way, we're able to do it because we're doing it from third party. We want to give you guys a good look at what faster-paced Wargroove might look like. I know a lot of top players are really excited for what changes in the meta when you don't have time to really think through an optimal move. And 5 minutes is pretty generous, I would say.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're doing 5 minutes is to give us a bit of leeway. It's a bit experimental. We're not really kind of rushing into something very sensitive, because even if people talked about earlier how there was 8-minute time limits before and how people seem taking very long. Most of the time people were within 8 minutes. It's just that 8 minutes is a really long time.
So we did give the players the okay. They will start as soon as Ash picks his commander and gets in the room here. You guys enjoy this format, let us know. We'd love to get some feedback across the board as far as competitive goes. Definitely should help from the spectator point of view more than anyone.
Yeah. So just a reminder, the precise timing system we have is you get 5 minutes. And if you go beyond 5 minutes, you go into a bank of 10 minutes. That bank is persistent between turns. So let's say on turn 1, you take 10 minutes. Well, you only have 5 minutes left in your bank. If that 5 minutes ever hits 0, then you lose. No questions asked. Doesn't matter if you're about to kill them. You're done if you run out of time.
Okay, gonna be Mercia from Ash. Dark Mercia for Vi.
Alright. So we haven't seen much Dark Mercia at the higher levels, or at least I haven't myself. I haven't actually seen her groove in action, but from what I know, it seems to be... I heard things about it being fairly potent, but it's a very slow charge. I think that often the one reason she isn't ran more is just because other slow charges tend to be what players prefer, or they rather just a medium charge, since most of the really strong characters are actually in the medium charge range.
A few things, just if you haven't, if you're just now joining us, again, this is Stronghold series. We don't host it every every week. It's we were hosted about once to twice a month, usually between Groove of Wars, so people can add to their resume to qualify for the event. Would you believe I've not run a game with Dark Mercia yet? Like, I've never heard this name. Like, what a banger.
I am not surprised one bit, to be honest. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just to interrupt by saying that's an interesting decision of where she put her mage there. I think the rationale for this is that she wants to be able to capture that left barracks and be in a position to really move forward to next turn. Because what most players do with a mage is what Ash is doing right here, and by putting it next to where Mercia is, on turn 3 he'll be able to capture the port, which is very important in this map.
Right.
Since generally, one thing that players like about this map is it doesn't stalemate. And the reason it doesn't stalemate is that once you have merfolk, warships, harpoons all coming through that ocean channel, then it's pretty damn close to unstoppable. So as a result, it forces the game to keep moving forwards.
Do you think that most games on this map actually get to that point as well? Because it does like get pretty packed depending on where you put your commander. Like whenever I played on this map, and I'm not playing at quite the high level that these guys are, but I pretty often don't actually get to that late game tech phase on the ocean.
I think part of that is just how unforgiving this map is when it comes to how few openings are viable. Once you know them, there's quite a few openings that you can do, but if you don't know the openings, then you usually end up with games that go very one-sided right from the start, and it's like, oh, this is over by turn 4 because you didn't know that you had to do this specific move on this specific turn. Which is the one flaw in my eyes about this map, is just how new player unfriendly it is.
Right.
It's worth mentioning this map was edited during the tournament. The knight was, or the second player swordsman was moved from right above the factory to the right of it. So that did happen.
It's gonna be a standard groove charge for Mercia on breaking the gate, dock take, and the factory take.
So Mercia groove is up. That means that he might be able to get something out of the early game with it, but yeah, one thing that made Valder such a force in this map is how he could actually get 2 charges of his groove between just damaging the wall and then killing the wall, and then he starts off with 2 skeletons. He used to put the skeletons in some crazy positions that just gave him like, oh, I am like already a turn ahead of you into center and on my strong front, so now you have to catch up basically.
By the way, there was that mage play you mentioned earlier about the forward village being taken based on the initial position.
Yep. I'm surprised it went... Well, I'm not that surprised it went this way, but I'm still trying to figure out what the big rationale is, because now Vi is going to be 2 turns behind on Ash when it comes to the naval front, and that's first of all just, well, 200 gold because there's 2 villages here, as well as you're now 2 units behind on your inevitable push down your front, which just means that Ash has a little more leeway to be more aggressive since he doesn't need to worry about that warship and harpoon coming down quite as soon.
Merfolk placed above the dock. We'll be able to peel into that ocean above the bridge on turn 1.
Yep. I think what makes this work is that Vi doesn't have an answer here, although it's still fairly aggressive compared to just going for these villages. Usually people will send one to capture both these villages first and then start with the second one there. Arguably what Ash should have done is put the merfolk to the right of the port, since if you go there, then it's still just as fast to make it to the ocean above it, but if you wanted to, for some reason, you could still... Well, I suppose even from here you can still capture the villages, so it doesn't really matter at all.
Classic case of casters maybe looking into it a little too much. Happens a lot in this game if you guys didn't notice.
There's a lot of interesting stuff about the early game on this map that you can just spend hours.
That's what I wanted to ask about. Like, most maps have a very optimal way to do your first 5 turns, but this map is, you know, every time I've played on it, I've felt like doing something different.
Yeah, and I think it's weird because I keep saying it's unforgiving. You have to know how to play the opening, but at the same time,
So does
there's
your
a
opponent.
lot of valid ones. There's like, you have so many options of what's a good opening at the same time. Like, the first player can straight up take both ports if second player doesn't open properly. That's how ridiculously unforgiving this. But that being said, there's at least 5 openings I know for second player, regardless of what player 1 does. So that's pretty amazing. And it looks like he is gonna just go for that village first. Yeah, I did not count movement correctly, so looks like that is truly the superior place to put a merfolk. We see a fair bit of pikemen coming out. Nothing
Don't
too
really
surprising.
need an
to anyone who's
answer
been
to it right away either. There's one turn early on the tower, but won't matter with the mage there. Nothing too oppressive can come out from there.
No, but it's worth mentioning that Ash is a turn ahead on the right side, and might actually be able to potentially control that village, that one neutral village above the tower. I don't think he has quite enough, but if he builds a harpy here, that could be enough for at least to hold it for a while.
Doesn't look like both players are keen on dipping into their overtime here. Granted, it is the first few turns of the game, but both players definitely keeping aware of that timer, not lollygagging too much.
Yep. It's definitely not like they're playing way faster than they used to be, but you can definitely feel there's a bit of urgency to not take excessively long times, because really, with the old rule, there's no reason not to spend a few minutes just, what about like the next turn or two, right? Start thinking ahead. And really, you can't fault anyone for playing slowly back when the rules were the way they were, because,
Right.
well, you're following the rules. Blame the game, not the player. So now that the rules have changed, we'll get to see something a little different.
Now, Doc, help explain to me and our viewers how this right village battle is going to go down. Because I think by traditional logic, if you're Ash, you do not take the village to avoid Dark Marcia getting groove charge, correct?
Yep, that is correct. Yeah, I'm just noticing that mage, the way it's positioned, means that normally if you have 3 spearmen all packed together, plus a harpy, that can actually kind of keep away a commander,
Right.
potentially enough to even say, "Yep, commander, you don't get to stay here. If you stay here, you're going to take a ton of damage. It won't be worth it for you. Go away." But with a mage and a infantry right there, that should be more than enough to make Ash play much more conservatively here. Now, Ash is a player who loves building early trebuchets, and I'm wondering if he's going to do the same opening that we've seen Matex and some other players do in building a trebuchet on this right side. I know that on this map, for a while, people didn't build trebuchets at all because, well, warships destroy them, and warships are the better siege unit in general on this map.
By the way, here comes a warship.
Yep. The one good reason to build a trebuchet is the one square right above the headquarters. The reason why that's such a great place to put a trebuchet is you're covering one ocean tile from the warship, as well as you are out of range from any warship, while having a fair amount of force to help keep your trebuchet safe. It's a good way to kind of just say, oh, I have a bunch of pikemen, I throw a trebuchet there, and I have a fairly decent defense against any kind of aggression against my headquarters.
Even though it cannot threaten the village, that is still a pretty strong wall there on the right side.
Yep, that should That should keep Ash away from any dumb stronghold rushes that just kind of make him lose. This mage placement from Ash is also really interesting since it's actually hits 2 of the spots by the tower, so it's not quite a lock on that tower, but it definitely makes any air unit slightly slower, which is good since Ash's next build will probably be a harpoon ship, or he's gonna get another mage up there if he wants to protect this warship and keep advancing it.
One thing I'm seeing here is just
There's the warship from Vi.
Yep. The strength of the flank for Ash with Mercia coming through the middle rather than Vi's push on the left side. Like, I'm way more scared of what Ash is lining up on the right side than Vi being a little spread out. These spearmen in the middle of the map, they're not doing much at the moment.
No.
They're going to get outran by the mage.
Right.
They're going to get outran by the commander. These spearmen need to pick a side. They need to either pick left or pick right. And if they pick right, they're going to take too long to get there. They're going to get cut off.
Hole in the middle isn't terrible because what hole in the middle does let you do is it lets you control the pace of the game, as well as so there's a lot of things going on in this map, so I'll keep
but if the pace of the game stays on the side, it doesn't matter.
Right, but in order to basically make this push on the right from let's say if you were Vi, right? To make this push on the right work, you need to have naval support, or else it's just not going to work. Your barracks is too far away. There's a tower right here and a barracks for Ash. A push here will never work. What makes it work is by controlling the naval and pushing here.
Right.
However, if Ash can get some archers up in this upper right-hand part of the corner here, then that can shut down a lot of, merfolk are now getting picked off. If your merfolk are getting picked off, your warships are going to be more vulnerable to harpies and dragons. So there's a huge amount of importance in just controlling the center so that you can get your naval out. If your naval gets bottled up, you're going to fall behind really.
The spearman line to the right does kill the infantry, pushes forward. The warship out of range next turn, obviously. So this is actually pretty threatening at the moment. I think Vi's going to have to back off here.
Yeah, I think so as well. What I'm wondering is if Vi can respond in and on the other side, because that merfolk won't be in position to punish something like that. This mage isn't going to do well against these spearmen. Yeah, it's worth noticing that, or noting that this mage up on that mountain is very powerful, and Ash's mage absolutely cannot attack that without just dying.
Spearman is going to be a little bit of a deterrent, however. Oh, that left flank, just with one move, most of those squares are now within threat range of a Ash unit.
Yep.
I don't know how quick of a push you can make with 4 spread out spearmen.
Well, the thing to note is that, let's say Vi lines up these 2 spearmen to the left of that village, right?
Mm-hmm. But then the warship comes.
Yeah, the warship can't reach that fast.
Does it have to reach it fast? The spearmen both move down. They attack the village. Is that what you're saying on the left side?
Yeah.
So the mage and the merfolk trade at least evenly, right? With that?
Not really, because the merfolk's not going to get a crit, so it's only going to do 30, which is not very much. And Vi will have another 2 spearmen ready to make that trade. So she could be trading, say, 1 or 2 pikemen for a mage and a merfolk, and that's a fantastic deal that will basically set this pushback a turn or 2, buying her some more time.
But what I'm saying is, the warship then comes. You might trade unfavorably with the mage and merfolk, but then the warship just starts fishing with your spearmen.
I think that's going to happen either way. It's just about if you're going to get value out of your spearmen. Plus, if that mage goes away, then Vi can build an air unit to deal with that warship.
That's actually what I was going to follow up on. I mean, you can trade the village for a little bit. You've obviously held off the right side village. You can trade off the left side village for a little bit and give the warship time to move in while the mage takes cover to be able to run.
Yep. I'm just gonna... Yeah. There's a second warship. That's very greedy. If I was Ash, I definitely would have built a harpoon here. Just because, well, you need more anti-air on this map, I find. A harpoon ship is really what often seals the deal, since air units can actually be extremely powerful here for two reasons. A, your tower is very close to your front line, and B, all these pathways makes it so mages aren't as good at clearing the air as they normally are. So I think Vi's definitely going to build an air unit next turn. Yeah, that second warship was extremely greedy. He's also built 2 swordsmen instead of pikemen just because of how much gold. On the topic of gold, one thing also interesting about this map is just this, are the 2 villages that are under contested, that are being contested right now. One thing that's changed, and it's partially due to how Advanced Wars by Web was played, is that a 1 or 2 village flip is not nearly as meaningful in Wargroove as it is in Advanced Wars. Like, in Advanced Wars, if you flip a village or 2, and you sit on it for a few turns, well, you're probably going to win. In Wargroove, we are seeing more and more the player with an economic disadvantage being able to still win, just because of how much more important tempo is in this game. So, while this map does have some anti-stalemate properties to fight over, it's definitely not super end of the world if you fall behind on them.
This is going to be the first turn one of our players does run into their bank time.
Yep. And I think Ash might have misplayed here, potentially. I have to think about it a fair bit, though.
So, yeah, so Vi pushes with Dark Mercia there, and the village obviously covers you from flank. Mage recaptures the village. Obviously, Mercia's not there to charge off that village, so it's pretty straightforward capture there. I'm beginning to see what your what the value is, like you mentioned, in this middle push, holding this middle ground. Mercia is Ash's Mercia is pretty not in a stalemate per se. She can back off at any time, but it's definitely holding her in that zone.
Yeah, bridges are really good for making commanders still useful in general. It's a lot harder for them to dive through a bridge, which is one reason why a lot of people like Ragna on this map. And I guess that extends to why Vi is picking Dark Mercia here, is that you can actually go into aggressive positions without dying because you can stand on a bridge. An important thing is that bridges are not road.
Yeah, definitely.
Meaning they don't
also,
trigger the dragon crit.
Also, the bridges, like, this is not the biggest of deals, but the bridges do, like, I mean, they don't block naval units in any regard, but they're still, like, zero defense.
They slow them down.
Yeah, they slow them down, but they're still zero defense terrain.
Right.
Like, there are a lot of units that could be on the field that would make me not want to be where Ash is. Fortunately, you know, we're not at that point in the game yet, but it does make you a little nervous.
I want to point out, since you're bringing up naval units and bridges, one thing I love about this map is how much turtles suck on this map.
Yes!
Because turtles are becoming the bane of naval warfare by pretty much everyone by general consensus. And part of it comes down to a lot of maps being poorly designed. We see way too deep sea, cough cough lake view. Um,
Turtles lose a lot of their meaning when they stop being units and start being torpedoes, basically.
yeah, and here's what happens. Let's say Vi parks. Let's look at where Vi's even parked her warship. Let's say Ash had 100 turtles on this map. Not one of them could do anything to that warship, which is why these bridges are so fantastic for destroying turtles. Like, you straight up can't attack. It makes them actually worthless because, well, you sit behind a bridge and you're safe.
Should be worth noting for those of you who are newer to the game that you cannot park Naval under a bridge in this game.
You can go through it, but if you park there, well, you can
can't.
do it in Fog of War, and it died.
Yep. We won't go too far into the Fog of War little glitches and intentions, but there are plenty of places for this warship to sort of set itself up as artillery.
Yep. Oh man, I remember I was looking at some Fog of War stuff, and the way it faces things is really weird. I remember straight up us trying to figure out the rules of it, and none of it working because it can go between corners and some other stupid stuff. It's absolutely a mess.
It's like League of Legends, except everything's a bush.
It's worse than that actually. Because,
What? Yeah, I
let's say you
think
have
I saw
two
that
force-
Reddit post where like some you can barely see into the tile and it's like super deceptive. Like it isn't very, it's not communicated extremely well.
No, what's worse is let's say you have two. So what happens is certain things actually block your vision, right? Like you can't see through a wall, right? Which makes sense. But if you have it like at a corner, so two walls touch at a corner, then at certain units can see through that and other units can't, and it's so ridiculous when you see it.
Wow.
I remember had this picture, and it's like, well, if it has 6 vision range, why can it see up to 7 here, but only 5 here? And it's unpredictable as hell.
Sounds like we should host a tournament with Fog of War, is what you're telling me.
It could be hilarious, I'm not gonna lie, but
We can barely get maps right for like standard competitive. I can't wait to see what a potential Fog of War map pool might look like.
there's so many issues with Fog of War that have to be fixed between just random rock paper scissors problems. There's a lot of literature on Advanced Wars by Web that goes into a lot of the issues.
Quick
really
note,
all
by the
come
way.
back.
Off the
Right.
topic of Fog of War, does this spearman in the woods attack Mercia, Dark Mercia? Or perhaps park there, or what's the correct thing to do with that soldier, with that spearman?
Depends on what Ash's goal is right now. I think I lean towards not doing it just because it puts something in the warship, and right now there's nothing in the warship range. Yeah. I don't think you do
Okay,
that.
yeah, I didn't keep an eye on the warship. See, that's why I'm not a pro.
Yeah, when it comes to units being in ranged it's like you want a bunch of units in there, or only one, or no units. One unit is usually the worst case scenario. 'Cause it's
Definitely.
like, in a way, I see it as when you put a bunch of units in, you're paying the tax of taking a hit, and if don't pay for that tax and not take advantage of it.
Right, it's like scaling
really bad.
returns, sort of.
Yeah. It's like paying for shipping for a feather, and you put it in a huge box. So I'm surprised that Vi went for a trebuchet on this front, just because I don't feel like that's the best answer here. So there's the harpoon ship from Ash. The reason I would have built the harpoon ship before the second warship, or maybe even before the first warship, is because harpoons are really slow. They move through like 2 sea tiles a turn. The bridges make them even worse. And as a result, they take a long time to get going. I joked with the map creator on this one. If he wants to remove harpoon ships from this map, what he needs to do is put a reef right underneath that bridge. Right? The one right underneath the warship. Put a reef right there and delete harpoons from the map.
It's funny that, you say that, and there have been so many conversations on, like, creative ways to remove units from this game.
What I like about
Ashes
that...
Mercia. I mean, obviously she's going to heal through this, or retreat, one or the other, but holding this bridge, a lot of these units are getting stuck in the middle for Vi, because Ash is willing to take this damage.
Yeah. I feel like Vi's big problem is just this huge amount of pikemen right here. But what she has going for her is the fact that this warship right now has basically no answer. And what's really important here is where she's putting that mage. I think she really wishes she could get that mage just a few squares further, because then it would get a lock on that tower, since Ash needs to build an air unit to deal with that warship.
It's very possible, by the way, based on what Ash's next move is going to be. Because you can see that mage is slowly trying to make its way to the right.
Yeah. I still think that Vi made a mistake by not building an air unit sooner, but she could be looking to just take a very conservative hold and just try to rush as much as she can on the right.
Does lock herself out of playing an air unit this turn, by the way.
Yep. She probably has 2 or 3 more turns before the... Well, actually, no, she has like 5 turns before the harpoon ship really starts locking. It's actually quite hard to lock down the tower on this map, which is a really good thing. It's good when naval units can fight back against air. It's not so good when, as soon as each player builds a harpoon ship, the towers are locked down. Like in Lakeview. So basically, this map is what Lakeview tried to be, except it did everything correct.
Hey, but shoutouts to people who make maps like Trial and Error, like super cool when your map gets into the pool to begin with.
Yeah,
probably no better honor than getting your map critique to hell, you know?
Yeah, and like, sure, I rip on Lakeview, but Lakeview's become a great example of what not to do, right? I mean, I know that sounds really rude right there, but legitimately it's a good example of, well, why does everyone not like this? Well,
but you as the map creator are learning the same time all the players are learning.
Right.
So something to note, this is Stronghold Series 2, if you're just now joining us, and we have this special thing at the top of your screen. We have an overtime chess clock, and based on the last 2 turns that Ash took, it might it might be a factor. By not dipping into that bank time, she's had a pretty good pace with her turns. Ash playing it out. He's averaged about 30 to 40 seconds of overtime a turn so far. So
yeah, and one of the interesting mechanics of that, we often talk about tempo advantage, income advantage, unit advantage, and now we have another thing to talk about, time advantage, because
you don't want to
time is a real resource.
You don't want to be at turn 18 in a sharp position with 5 minutes less than your opponent.
Yeah, like, it's just like, so for anyone who's seen bullet chess, or even just normal chess.
Yeah, no, continue.
What were you saying? You sounded like you were very excited about something.
Well, it also stands to note that it also kind of changes the way resignation strategy works now. Because if you are winning significantly on time, then you have, a legitimate option to time your opponent out if they don't take your Stronghold or Commander.
Right.
That is a real thing.
Yep. And I think because we have a time delay that's so generous, it probably won't be relevant in this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're winning, you should have no problem spending 5 minutes to just push your winning position.
Right, I agree with that. Okay, I might have gotten a little too excited there. Just thinking back to like thinking back to like 1 minute chess, you know?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely happens where it's like, well, I have more time than you, but you're technically, if the game was to go on for the next 30 turns, you would win. But, well, I was faster than you, so now you're going to lose, because even though you technically will win 30 turns from now. But it's worth noting there's still a meta game within that, because it's like, well, Now the
probably-
person with the time advantage wants to keep that time advantage, so maybe he's going to make a misplay that lets you win even faster, and
Harpy
there's a
on the
lot
right.
of interest there.
So we talked earlier about how this mage probably wanted to get a lock on the tower. That's not going to happen. The spearman line, Ash foregoed the crit condition in order to really block out that mage to get the harpy out there.
Yeah, well, the Harpy was already saved, so I'm not sure why he's committing quite this much to it. But I wonder how much damage Dark Mercia could potentially do, and just this warship. Since this warship will have quite a few turns before the Harpy really even starts contesting it.
Very strong
Similarly,
position
on
in the
this
middle of the map
side.
for Ash.
Yeah, this warship position is absolutely deadly. Vi does technically make it in time to put her trebuchet in the one safe location, but I really think that without an air unit, you are surrendering way too much just by letting this warship take hits. And this warship is actually in such a forward position with no answer from Vi that this warship can do some really nasty stuff. Like
Vi
you
will
just sit in the
have
middle here.
1350 gold next turn.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a dragon because she
No.
might straight up need it.
Absolutely.
Look at I mean, just move this warship to the center right there, and now Ash has undisputed control of the center, and he can actually afford that because of how far up he is.
There's no running away from that either. Like
No.
your spearmen aren't getting away. You're starting to just lose units. Now Vi can
Yeah.
position her warship to cover the center tiles, but might be a case of too low, too late. Especially since the
I
Harpies
think-
dare to drive back the warship.
I think Vi cannot afford to trade warships. If they trade warships, then it's like, well, sure, that's a fair trade, but look at what the map actually looks like, and it's one side
Right.
has a warship, one side doesn't have a warship. So that would be, I think, really bad for
But what
her.
about my second warship? Right.
Exactly. And that's start of where I'm starting to separate from getting really good and just good at the game, right? A lot of people who are, barely make it to top 8s, what a lot of them are stuck on is thinking about value trades, right? Like, oh, trading my dragon for a warship is a terrible deal because I'm paying $12.50 for something that costs $900. But if you're a really good player, you actually shouldn't be thinking about unit cost basically at all once you've actually bought the unit. Because technically, who cares how much it costed? Except for repairs, I guess. Because it's like, do you rather have a situation where you have a dragon and they have a warship? Or do you rather...
Right, it's not like you're playing...
Existing?
It's not like you're playing Hearthstone, you know. There are more factors on the field, like movement, position. A simple
Yep.
gold-to-gold value trade is not necessarily the only factor to worry about.
Yep. And it's kind of like in
Trebuchet.
chess as well, right? You can trade a well-positioned knight is worth way more than a queen that's positioned in the corner that can't move. So it's that kind of thinking again. And in particular with dragons, well, it probably took 1 or 2 turns for it to get to the position where it's killing that warship. And there's the dragon. But how long did it take that warship to make it all the way up there? Units, in a way, build value just by moving towards the front line. So there's a dragon there. That's really important. Gives Vi a chance to hold on the left. And if she can hold on the left, I don't think her position is terrible. I also think he might be overstaying her position overstaying her position on the right, but she's going for it here. That's really interesting.
Oh, that's scary.
Can she take that?
I mean,
Is that actually possible? I don't
want
know.
to say no.
How much
that's
is Swordsman gonna do to that mage? It's gonna almost kill it, but then you just have mage heal. Only one unit is gonna be able to hit Mercia, and that's probably gonna be the Harpy or Spearman crit. Actually, Spearman crit for sure. But any kind of spearman here, that warship in position, is that enough?
That's terrifying. This is a very big gamble. I'm trying to also just remember exactly what Dark Mercia Groove does as far as damage is dealt. Again, this is just my lack of knowledge on this commander, but are buildings affected?
I know when it comes to Ragna, buildings are affected.
And when it comes to Mercia, buildings are affected as well, correct?
Oh, damn. So that
this
means
could
that
be
her next turn, heal, and then attack again.
Or
and
attack
that
and
might
heal.
just do it.
Attack on 9, or attack on what? It'll be 6 or 7. Attack on 6 or 7, and then groove. What your low health?
Oh man, that's really interesting.
Okay, so let's start running through the scenario for Ash instead of Vi, because that that might be more worth looking into at this point.
So Ash doesn't have a way to win on his side, just period. Sure, those I was hyping those warships up, but those are a long-term advantage. Those are ways of generating value. Those won't kill the Stronghold. He has no way of winning the race, I think. So now Ash has one thought, and that one thought is how to not die here.
Right. This is crazy. This is not the move I expected from Vi. I don't think Vi went into this push with that idea either.
I think she might have, just based on where she positioned that mage last turn. Let's see.
But I mean, when she had a mage and Mercia, or mage and Dark Mercia on the right side of the map, I don't think she thought, I'm going to like surprise him with a cheese. Like I think she might have low-key stumbled into this position, and it's a damn good position.
Let's see. How long will it take Ash's Mercia to reach it? 1, 2, 4. So in 3 turns, Ash can heal his Stronghold with a Mercia. So if he can hold on for 3 turns, then that does give him quite a bit more time. And then Mercia's there, and there's a lot of kill threat on Dark Mercia. Can he last for 3 turns? Well, if Dark Mercia, let's say, how much damage is Dark Mercia going to take?
It's 30%, by the way, on the damage for Dark Mercia.
Right. So then about 90%, that's about 27. Is that on average or min?
On full, like it's 30. On groove. Dark Mercia deals 30 to every unit. She also heals off of it, by the way, so she'll be full health.
30% or 30% of her normal damage?
30%.
Just a flat 30?
Dark Mercia raises her sword to the sky and drains surrounding units by 30%, healing herself.
Oh man, does that work on...
That's the full heal, and then she smacks the Stronghold again.
Stronghold heals for 5 each turn, correct? So 1 turn of 30, probably how many attack? That's like...
So if I'm Ash, another path that I'm looking at is maybe I have to deal with the mage instead?
There's nothing that can deal with the mage. He can at best get 1 swordsman hit on it. That's literally all he has right now.
Oh my
1
God.
swordsman hit.
What?
Well, actually, no. I shouldn't say that. He has...
Well, he has the Harpy as well.
He has a mage onto the pikeman, so the pikeman with 6 health and crit could do a pretty decent amount of damage to the mage. The problem is, that mage isn't going to attack. All that mage is going to do is maybe heal. Which is so rude here. And doesn't change the fact that this warship is here too. Like, this is actually a really wild position here.
I think one thing that Ash might be able to do is full health pikemen up, 4 health pikemen on the mage, 3 health pikemen on the mage, Harpy on the mage.
Like a suicide trade.
Yeah, so mage heals 4/3 spearmen. Full health Spearman pokes Dark Mercia, 5 health, 4 health mage, and then the Harpy on the mage. That's an option.
Probably end with a swordsman on the mage.
The swordsman can't reach mage.
The swordsman.
Oh, the second one can. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably what's gonna hit it. So that might
be the move. I can't think of a more optimal move.
I think the slightly more optimal move might be something crazy as heal only the 3 health spearmen, throw the 5 health spearmen in, then throw the 4 health spearmen in. That also has to die, then throw the swordsman in. That might be the absolute optimal play, which is absolutely bonkers.
Which, by the way, this is an all-in at this point for Vi. She just lost most of her mid units here with the warship passing by.
Absolutely, this
they're
is
also
absolutely an all-in.
The spearman from on the middle right bridge, by the way, also is 2 moves away from reaching the mage.
Man,
at some point, Dark Mercia has to actually attack the stronghold, right?
Yeah,
like she can't go on this gambit where she holds her groove as long as she can.
The problem is that right now Ash is only going to be able to hit with one thing, and again on the next turn only hit with one thing.
Well,
so Dark Mercia should be able to attack for the next 2 turns.
I mean, the mage could die this turn.
True, we are discussing some really wild ways that could happen.
That warship from Vi, though. And the merfolk from Vi can actually body block if moved correctly.
I don't think it's gonna.
Man. Ash is burning through his bank time as well, by the way. If there's any turn to burn through bank time, this is the turn to burn your time.
This is what time is for. This is why we are not doing a strict time limit per turn.
Oh my god, this is
you want this big.
This is paying off. This is good. This match went from lean Ash to what is happening. This might work for Vi. I'm thoroughly entertained. Let me know what you guys think in Twitch chat and YouTube. This is what we want from Stronghold series.
Yep, this is what happens when you have good rules and a good map. Because and it's worth noting that this play, whether it's good or whether it's correct or not, is a lot less powerful when you have all the time in the world.
Agreed,
right
yeah,
now,
no doubt.
Ash can only calculate so many possible paths. Like, we discussed a whole bunch of paths. We aren't pulling out our calculators yet, but if I was in this game, I'd probably be pulling out a calculator. But
yep, okay, so there's mage, 6-5.
I think he is gonna throw them in and see if he can get them to die.
Well, he needs to move his spearman in position first, of course.
He might actually need his spearman not to have a crit first, so that the mage still has enough health to kill it. It's so wild we're talking like this, but I'm not even convinced that heal was necessarily correct. And here's the thing is that... Oh, yep, okay, the mage is dead. Well, actually... That mage... that swordsman right now has about a 50-50, I think, to kill it. Which is pretty unnerving. That pikeman has about the same odds of killing it. So both of those are literally coin flips right now. That's rough. Because if this mage doesn't die, then it's all over for Ash. It might come down to a coin flip here. That's rough. That's absolutely rough.
It's 11%, so that wasn't within roll, but...
Oh, okay. That's not so rough then. Probably should have hit with the swordsman then, for sure.
Time running out for Ash. He's at 2:35 left.
We'll probably give him a warning at 2 minutes or so.
I agree.
Just as a heads up. Oh, man. And I'm wondering here, is there potentially enough power between this warship that he could even just delay this further? Like, because I think I think the play here is heal and then just throw Dark Mercia at the Stronghold again. I'm pretty sure. but
Well,
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure of anything anymore.
the good news is, I don't think Ash is going to be using his full bank time on future turns. I think this was the turn where he needed all 10 minutes he got, right?
Yep. This is the critical turn, and from here on, it's kind of, well, these are those consequences.
Yeah, I've only
of your
got these
decision.
units. She's only got these units.
Yeah. This was the turn where you needed to solve the puzzle. This is
Ash
a tough
making me pretty
situation.
nervous on this clock, though. I won't lie. There's the witch. Okay.
Yep. That witch is just there to do, well, 10% a turn, which is actually a really big deal. I think that that's definitely the right play, because that's the only other unit that he can build that can hit Dark Garcia.
Heal from the mage. I forgot about that one.
Oh, you forgot about the heal. Yeah, no,
heal
that's,
from the mage too.
yeah, that's why getting the kill was so critical, because it's either you get that heal or you don't get that heal.
Hey, what does the warship hit, by the way?
The warship hits pretty much everything except for that south pikeman, I believe. Well, until he clears out that pikeman on the bridge.
Okay.
That's the one thing he needs to do
45 on the stronghold. Dark Mercia deals 30, by the way. Assuming, by the way, it hurts buildings, which I'm not even sure we know that part yet. I don't have Dark Mercia unlocked on my Switch, so I can't run off and check real quick. So...
I don't either.
Oh my god. Oh man.
So it looks like that warship is going to get wrecked by that harpy next turn. That might have been an oversight by Vi, but the harpy can still reach around to that warship. So the warship is dead, but again, who cares? It all comes down to this.
Dragon making a wide berth for the mage. The dragon will be a factor next turn. The harpoon ship, by the way, Ash didn't move it, I don't believe. So, well, maybe. I mean, he can't move it with
No,
the
he
Merfolk in the way.
did.
Okay.
It just takes a ridiculous amount of time to move them, because they get hit by that. They get slowed down by that bridge,
Right.
which is pretty rough. Will this dragon actually 1, 2, 3? They'll start picking off units, but it's 2 turns, man. If that dragon ends up finishing things.
Alright, the timer started for
Alright.
Ash. He has a little over 6 minutes to figure out this play.
So the good news is that mage will die here. The bad news is that might not be enough. So let's see. Next turn, Dark, it's probably...
This turn,
Can you-
it's... Okay, for next turn for Dark Messiah, it's attack the Stronghold, and then groove the Stronghold to kill it.
Maybe. I'm wondering if next turn is the groove turn, if Ash can do enough damage. No, I think it comes down to whether or not Ash does enough damage. Like, the nice thing about Vi is that as stressful as this position is, in a way, she gets to chill here because she doesn't really have too many choices here. It's, oh, I'm gonna die next turn, so I have to groove, or, oh, I'm not gonna die, so let me postpone it by 1 more turn. Yeah. Right now, the burden is on Ash to try to find a way to win, if it's even possible. That's one of the heartbreaking
I
things.
certainly think it's possible. I certainly think it's possible. There are so many options here with the mage and the witch.
Yeah.
By the way, there is a tower there as well. The
Yeah,
tower
but it comes
can
down to
just...
how...
The tower,
Right.
assuming if you don't lose your stronghold this turn, or next turn rather, which you don't lose your stronghold next turn no matter what, a dragon can come out this turn, and you can
Yeah, that
burst.
could help.
You can burst Dark Mercia out of the game.
Dragons don't do a whole lot, to be honest, if it's not a road. It's only 40, I
It
believe.
does more than a mage and spearman. I mean, it does enough.
That's true. That is true. It does a fair bit, but I think the mage is... I think he just used that mage to heal. Yeah, he can... Oh, the reason I did all that math wrong earlier is because that mage was on a forest. That's why it was so strong. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah,
that
I think this isn't gonna work out.
Double spearman crit should do about 30 each, or is it gonna be less than that?
So in
double
Vi, I think in
spearman crit.
Vi's perfect scenario, Vi gets...
Vi grooves next turn for sure. I am
Yes.
certain of that. Which in a way it means that the amount of damage Ash does now is kind of irrelevant. In fact, he has to figure out the exact right amount of damage that doesn't trigger Vi to, or that triggers Vi to groove, and any more damage is just kind of wasted. But again, that doesn't really matter here because who cares? So groove is going to take, so that Stronghold is going to heal up to 60. Vi is going to groove and it's going to go down to 30. Then Ash should do enough damage that it might come down to a high roll, low roll.
Okay, so that pikeman just got out of the way of... Well... I'm just trying to see if Groove will heal Dark Mercy at a full.
It should heal to full. Is it always to full or not always to full?
It's health drained. I mean,
Oh.
856 is gonna give it, obviously.
Yeah, that should be more than enough.
Double Witch, by the way.
Double Witch, that's actually a big deal, but...
I think Ash has it. I think Ash survived.
yeah, no, Ash is now in position to heal next turn. He's fine. He
Yep.
made it. He did it.
Wow.
That was
I think
intense.
this is it, obviously, but wow, that was something. I made that really close, just based on timer as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering...
I was gonna laugh if it didn't damage the Stronghold. It didn't damage the Stronghold.
Oh, it didn't damage this... Yeah, that's...
Well,
that's
okay, yeah,
over
it's
then.
over.
That's over then.
Good game.
The whole if this works is entirely predicated on does it...
Top tier casting talent, by the way. I'm Gavin, joined by Doc.
Oh, it's worth noting, it actually doesn't take 30... It doesn't look like it actually takes 30 away from the unit. It looks like it takes 30% of what they have. If I'm correct in what I just saw. Yeah, no, that should be game.
Yeah.
That was very well played.
That was a blast.
Definitely pushed Ash to his limits. There was definitely some real time there. What a game.
That was a blast.
But I think... Yeah. There's no way for Dark Mercia to escape here, right?
No.
No, those
Because
witches
for every
should be
unit,
enough to
every
block
unit
this.
you kill gets replaced by another unit on the body block, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Yeah, there should be no way. Well, actually, I'm wondering,
No way.
does...
There's
no
no,
way,
actually.
no.
There's no way Mercy is getting out, because two witches are going to replace with the soldier and the pikeman.
Right, but I'm wondering, does Mercia Groove actually heal the Stronghold?
Does it matter?
I
I don't think Dark Mercy is surviving.
That's true.
Yeah, now we're second questioning ourselves on every groove in the game. Like, does Mercia heal buildings?
Well, we know it heals buildings, but does it work on Stronghold? And there's some inconsistency here, because the game
Stronghold's a
doesn't tell
building.
you. Yeah, but, That's true. But buildings are units.
And Dark Mercia damages units, so...
So therefore, so I think we've proven that Dark Mercia does not damage units.
Yeah, there you go. Reverse transitive property. You got it. Christ. By the looks of it, Ash will survive, barring something incredibly out of left field. Unless Ash literally AFKs for 5 minutes, I think he's got it. But that was really, really scary by Vi.
That was definitely an exciting game, no doubt.
And again, we saw great time management from Ash. He chose to turn that he was going to take his time to figure out. He knew once that turn was over, he would be able to just use his 5-minute standard.
Yep.
Those of you just now joining us, this is Stronghold series. I'm Gavin, joined by Doc. This is a King of the Hill gauntlet. Ash will be facing 2 opponents tonight. He's currently playing Vi, who's given us an extremely entertaining match with this Dark Mercia late push.
Let's see.
Next game, he'll be playing Zeronix, and it'll be the Groove of War 1 champion against the Groove of War 2 champion. Also a rematch for Groove of War 2, I believe.
Yep. Earlier in this last Groove of War, in the semifinals, Zeronix managed to beat Ash 2-1. And it was quite an interesting game. I'll say that one of the games came down to Ash low rolling. Another one of the games came down to Ash high rolling.
Oh, wait, hold on. Building? It's consistent. It's consistent. Okay.
Wait, but it's not fully consistent still, because Ragna does damage Stronghold. I know this because there's a lethal puzzle that relies on that. I'm like 99% sure, although now I'm not so sure.
If you want me to make it worse, Ragna's description is leaps into the air and deals 65% of the damage she would inflict at full health to surrounding units.
Oh no.
It's Riot Game tooltips all over again. Everything's a minion. Wow.
That was a good game from both our players today.
That was a blast. Stick around at the end of this match, guys. Or rather, stick around at the end of the break. We will have Game 2. Our champion versus our challenger. Game 2 will be Zeronix taking on Ash next for the champion position for Stronghold series. Winner walking away with a cash prize, by the way. Nothing too crazy. I would say it's about half of a Wargroove in payment.
It's definitely... How much does Wargroove cost where you live? I thought I had to deal with the Canadian rupee. And that's game.
That is game.
What an exciting game.
Wow, that was a blast. Thank you so much for that one, Vi. And then Ash, very much solving that lethal puzzle.
Honestly, the lethal puzzles are by far my favorite single player content. I hope to see... I want to see some community ones. I wouldn't mind seeing a contest for that as well at some point. Because lethal puzzles can be really fun, and they encourage a certain mastery of the game, I think. I know that playing a lot of single-player content can really mess with your ability to play PvP, but lethal puzzles are definitely good for you.
All right. So, with that said, thank you very much, Vi. Awesome challenger. Ash versus Zeronix will be next. Ash will be defending his crown as the Stronghold Series champion. We'll be right back after this quick break.